"Sir, this hotel is not a shelter. Take your bag and leave before our guests start asking questions." The sentence cut across the grand lobby of the Whitmore Grand in downtown Chicago, sharp enough to stop the clink of champagne glasses near the marble staircase. A thin man in a dust-colored coat stood beside the registration desk, one hand on a canvas travel bag, the other curled around something small in his pocket. His shoes were cracked at the edges, his gray hair had been flattened by rain. A smear of road dust crossed one sleeve as if he had walked farther than anyone in that room would ever believe. Behind him, two valets watched from the revolving doors. Near the center of the lobby, donors and city officials had gathered for the hotel anniversary dinner, all polished shoes and black dresses beneath a chandelier the size of a car. Phones were already rising, not openly at first, just enough to catch a poor man being corrected in public. The man at the desk, Richard Vale, smiled like he was doing the world a favor. Vale was the hotel's general manager. Everyone in Chicago hospitality knew his face from award photos, charity breakfasts, and magazine spreads about restoring old-world luxury. He wore a navy suit, a silver lapel pin, and the calm expression of someone used to having security arrive before he needed to raise his voice. "I have a reservation," the traveler said. His voice was low, worn, not weak. Vale didn't touch the computer. "I'm sure you do," he said. "And I'm sure somewhere in this city there's a motel that accepts cash, stories, and whatever that smell is." A few guests laughed because they thought they were supposed to. At the far end of the desk, a young desk clerk named Maya Alvarez lowered her eyes. Her hand hovered near the keyboard, but Vale's stare pinned it there. The traveler removed an old envelope from inside his coat. Its corners were softened from age. Before he could open it, Vale plucked it from his fingers and held it away from his suit like a dirty napkin. "Please don't put that on my counter. It belongs with the room," the traveler said. "No." Vale's smile thinned. Rooms belong to paying guests. The traveler's jaw moved once, as if he had swallowed something bitter and old. Then Vale saw the object in his other hand. It was a key. Not a plastic card, not a brass souvenir. A heavy bronze key, dark at the edges from years of touch, hanging from a plain leather loop. Its bow was worn smooth except for 3 tiny letters stamped into the metal. Vale's face changed for half a second, then he reached for it. The traveler closed his fist. "Give me that," Vale said quietly. "It was given to me. It is hotel property." A city councilwoman in the front cluster leaned toward her husband. A donor stopped chewing. Someone's phone light blinked red. Vale raised his voice again, performing now. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize. We've had an issue lately with people wandering in from the station, claiming they have connections to the property. We take guest safety seriously." The traveler did not defend himself. That made it worse. Vale nodded to security. 2 men moved in from beside the elevators, their jackets too tight across their shoulders. Maya stepped out from behind the desk. "Mr. Vale, maybe we should check the old register. There are legacy reservations in the archive, and sometimes—" "Maya," Vale said without even facing her, "return to your station if you want one tomorrow." She froze. The traveler noticed that. His eyes shifted to her name tag, then back to Vale. "Don't threaten her over me," he said. Vale laughed under his breath. "Over you? Sir, by tomorrow morning, no one in this lobby will remember you." Then he did the thing that made even the laughing guests go still. He grabbed the canvas bag, opened it, and dumped its contents onto the marble floor. A folded shirt, a worn shaving kit, a cracked picture frame, face down, a small tin of medicine, and a bundle of handwritten letters tied with black ribbon. The traveler bent fast for the letters, but one security guard caught his arm. For the first time, anger moved through his face. Not loud anger. The kind that had been waiting years for a reason not to stay buried. Vale nudged the letters with the tip of his shoe. "This is not a museum," he said. "And it is not yours." The traveler slowly straightened. Across the lobby, the bronze key hung from his fist, catching chandelier light in a dull, warm flash. "Richard," he said. The manager stiffened at the sound of his first name. "You can still stop." That was when the elevator at the north wall chimed. The doors opened to reveal the private lift attendant, a white-haired man in a burgundy uniform, pushing a cart meant only for the top floor. On the cart sat a silver tray, a folded linen cloth, and a sealed black box stamped with the Whitmore crest. The attendant saw the key. His hand stopped on the cart handle. "Where did you get that?" he whispered. Vale snapped, "Ignore him." But the old attendant's eyes had filled with recognition, and that quiet reaction traveled faster than a shout. The phones lifted higher. The donors leaned in. Maya's breathing caught. The traveler picked up the cracked picture frame from the floor and tucked it under his arm without showing the photograph. Then he walked past security. No one stopped him. He crossed the lobby toward the private elevator, each step leaving faint dust on polished stone. Vale followed, color rising into his neck. "You do not have access to that floor," Vale said. There were no buttons marked Presidential Suite, only a bronze plate with a narrow keyhole no guest had used in decades. The traveler raised the old key. Vale's voice dropped into a warning. "If you turn that, I will have you removed, charged, and buried in court before sunrise." The traveler fitted the bronze key into the lock. It slid in like it had been waiting. And before the doors closed, before anyone in that lobby understood what they were about to lose, the dusty man said one sentence. "Then, call your lawyers." To understand why Richard Vale's career ended in that lobby and why a key no one respected still opened the most powerful door in the hotel, we have to go back 3 days earlier. 3 days earlier, the man in the dust-colored coat was walking along Route 66 outside Joliet, Illinois, with a canvas bag on his shoulder and a bronze key against his chest. His name was Samuel Whitmore. Most people who passed him saw a tired old man near the edge of the road, one bad step away from needing help. A trucker slowed once, then kept going. A teenager in a gas station parking lot filmed him for 5 seconds, laughed, and forgot him before the clip finished uploading. Samuel noticed none of it. He had learned over 72 years that people revealed themselves fastest when they thought you had nothing to offer them. By noon, he reached a small diner with red vinyl booths and a faded sign that promised hot coffee. He sat near the back, ordered soup, and paid with exact cash. When the waitress brought him a refill, she noticed the old key resting beside his bowl. "That's a serious key," she said. Samuel covered it gently with his hand. "It opened a room once," he said. "Not anymore?" He gave her a tired smile. "That's what I'm going to find out." The key had belonged to his father, Everett Whitmore, a hotelman from Milwaukee who believed a lobby told the truth about a city. In 1968, Everett bought a failing building near the Chicago River and spent 10 years turning it into the Whitmore Grand. He refused to call employees staff in front of guests. He called them keepers of the house. On the day the presidential suite opened, Everett had pressed the bronze key into Samuel's palm and said, "A door means nothing if decent people can't pass through it." Samuel was 22 then, restless, proud, and certain he knew more than his father. He left the hotel business for architecture, then preservation work, then years of restoring old courthouses and train depots across the Midwest. He built a quiet reputation as the man who could read a building the way other people read a confession. He knew where old service corridors ran, why a staircase sagged, how a hidden wall panel had been cut, and which repairs had been done with care instead of greed. But he never truly escaped the hotel. After his father died, Samuel inherited control through a family trust. He refused interviews, declined society invitations, and kept his name off the lobby wall. The public story was simple. The Whitmore Grand had been sold to a hospitality group and professional managers ran it. The private truth was more complicated. Samuel still owned the controlling interest. He had kept it because his father's will carried one condition that mattered more than money. The hotel was to remain a working house of dignity. Employees could not be discarded for image. Long-term workers could not be pushed out to polish a balance sheet. The top floor suite, the one behind the bronze plate, was to remain preserved as Everett left it until the trust board voted otherwise. For years, Samuel watched from a distance through reports, site visits under other names, and quiet conversations with workers who still remembered his father. He never interfered without cause. Then, the complaints began. A houseman transferred after 28 years, a banquet server written up for speaking Spanish near guests. A desk clerk denied medical leave. Anonymous notes from employees who said Richard Vale had turned the hotel into a stage set, beautiful in photographs and cruel behind service doors. Samuel did what he had always done. He verified. He requested records. He read schedules. He compared old employee protections to new policies dressed up as brand alignment. He found enough smoke to worry him, but not enough fire to force the board's hand. Then a letter arrived from Maya Alvarez. It was only 6 paragraphs typed on hotel stationery and mailed without a return address. She did not ask for money or a job. She asked whether the founder's promise still meant anything. She wrote about guests being treated better than the people who served them. She wrote about a maintenance worker who slept in his car after his hours were cut. She wrote about the hotel anniversary dinner planned for Friday night, where Vale would stand beside city officials and announce a heritage renewal plan. At the bottom, in careful handwriting, she added one sentence. They are clearing out everything tied to Mr. Everett before the dinner. Samuel read that line 3 times. The next morning, he drove to the storage facility outside Peoria, where he kept what remained of his father's private papers. The caretaker had called him 2 months earlier about a roof leak, but Samuel had delayed the trip because his doctor wanted him off the road. His heart had been unreliable since spring. A pill bottle in his coat reminded him every morning that he was not as stubborn as he felt. Inside the storage unit, dust lay over everything. Samuel opened old boxes with a folding knife. There were ledgers, photographs, building drawings, menus from the opening week, and his father's letters tied with black ribbon. In the last crate, wrapped in cloth, he found the cracked picture frame. The photograph inside showed Everett Whitmore standing in the original lobby, one hand on the shoulder of a teenage bellhop with terrified eyes. Written on the back was a note in Everett's handwriting. First day we chose mercy over appearance. Samuel sat on an overturned crate for a long time. He knew that story. The bellhop had arrived late, dirty from pushing his mother's stalled car through snow. A guest demanded he be fired for looking unfit. Everett had promoted him 2 years later, and the boy eventually became the hotel's longest-serving floor captain. Samuel placed the photograph with the letters and sealed them in his bag. Those letters were the only central proof Samuel had never shown anyone. In them, Everett had written to his son about why the top suite was locked away, why power had to answer to memory, and why the hotel's future depended on protecting people who could be easily shamed. Samuel had planned to send copies to the trust board. The anniversary dinner was in 3 days. Vale would be on a stage, surrounded by cameras, donors, and officials. If Samuel acted quietly, Vale would bury it quietly. If Samuel waited, the old suite could be emptied, the staff protections rewritten, and Everett's last promise reduced to a plaque for tourists. So Samuel chose the slower road. He left his car at the Joliet station after it began coughing smoke from the hood. The repair shop said Monday at the earliest. A rideshare would have been easy. A clean suit would have been easier. But Samuel had spent his life watching polished men lie beautifully in polished rooms. He wanted to know what kind of house the Whitmore Grand had become when no one thought the owner was watching. By Thursday evening, he reached Chicago in the rain. From the bridge on Michigan Avenue, he could see the hotel glowing above the traffic, every window lit like a promise. The bronze key felt heavy in his pocket. His medicine rattled in the tin. His father's letters pressed against his side. Samuel stood there until the walk sign changed twice. Then he crossed toward the hotel that carried his name, knowing he had less than 24 hours before Richard Vale tried to erase what was left of it. The Whitmore Grand did not feel cruel from the sidewalk. It felt grand. Gold light poured through the revolving doors. A doorman in a charcoal coat greeted guests by name. Inside, the lobby smelled of polished wood, lilies, and expensive raincoats. The old marble floor had been restored until every chandelier reflected in it like a second ceiling. Samuel entered with water dripping from his coat hem. No one rushed to help him. That was the first answer. A family rolled 3 suitcases past him toward the elevators. A businessman on his phone angled his body away as if poverty could stain wool. Near the front desk, Maya Alvarez was explaining room charges to a tired couple with 2 children asleep against their luggage. Samuel waited until she finished. When she finally saw him, her professional smile appeared automatically, then softened into something more human. "Good evening, sir. Are you checking in?" "I hope so," Samuel said. She noticed the mud on his shoes and the soaked canvas bag, but she did not let her eyes stay there. "Do you have a name for the reservation?" "Samuel. Last name?" He paused. It would have been easy to end the test right there. "Say, Whitmore, watch the whole machine rearrange itself, receive apologies from people who had not changed in their hearts." His father had warned him about that kind of truth. A name could open doors without opening character. "Wells," Samuel said. It was his mother's maiden name. Maya typed. Her brow tightened. "I'm not seeing it, Mr. Wells. It may be under a company or a legacy account. Did someone make it for you?" "My father did," Samuel said. Maya did not smile at that. She searched again. Behind her, a man in a fitted navy suit came from a side office with a tablet in his hand. Richard Vale moved through the lobby like the building had been built around his schedule. Guests brightened when they saw him. Employees straightened before he reached them. "Mr. Crane," Vale said to the businessman, shaking his hand without breaking stride. "Your suite is ready, and I took the liberty of having the Barolo placed upstairs." Then his eyes landed on Samuel. His smile stayed, but the warmth disappeared. "Maya," he said, "why is this gentleman still at the desk?" "He may have a legacy reservation," she answered carefully. Vale gave Samuel a quick scan. "Coat, bag, shoes, tired face. We do not use that phrase with walk-ins." Samuel kept his hand on the counter. "I asked for a room, and I'm sure Maya has explained our availability." She was checking. Vale set the tablet down and leaned in just enough to make the conversation private in volume, but public in power. "Sir, this is a full-service hotel hosting a major dinner tomorrow. We cannot accommodate unverified guests who arrive without identification, luggage tags, or appropriate payment." Samuel reached into his coat for his wallet. Vale's hand lifted. "Slowly, please." Maya's cheeks colored. A bellman nearby, Jerome Price, stopped polishing the brass edge of a luggage cart. He was in his late 50s, with careful posture and a face that had learned when not to react. Samuel noticed the old employee pin on Jerome's lapel, the kind issued before the redesign. Samuel placed his ID and a credit card on the counter. Vale did not pick them up. "Mr. Wells," he said, reading the license from where he stood, "there is a Grandview Lodge 2 blocks south that may be more comfortable for your needs." "My needs are simple," Samuel said. "A clean room. Respect at the desk." Maya's fingers paused over the keyboard. Vale's expression sharpened. At the far side of the lobby, a woman in a cream coat was arranging place cards on a table for the anniversary dinner. Denise Harper, chair of the hotel trust board, had silver hair, rimless glasses, and the distracted confidence of someone who believed procedures protected her from unpleasant facts. Vale called to her with a bright voice. "Denise, we'll have the donor packet ready for review by 9. Harper nodded, then noticed the tension at the desk. "Everything all right?" "Absolutely," Vale said, "just handling a non-guest issue." Non-guest. Samuel felt that word settle over him like dust. Maya tried again. "Mr. Vale, I can check the archive binder. There are old standing instructions tied to the founder's floor." Vale's smile vanished for her alone. "The founder's floor is sealed pending tomorrow's presentation. No one accesses those records without my approval. The policy says desk supervisors can verify." "The policy," Vale said, is being updated because this hotel is no longer a sentimental boarding house. Jerome's polishing cloth stopped moving. Samuel heard the sentence beneath the sentence. Vale was not only managing rooms, he was managing history. If he could make the old rules sound embarrassing, he could remove the people protected by them. A door opened near the concierge station, and a young assistant in a black dress appeared with a stack of folders. Her name tag read Tessa. She came close enough for Samuel to hear. "Richard, the display team wants confirmation. Do we remove the old employee wall tonight or after breakfast?" "Tonight," Vale said. Maya's head rose. "The employee wall? It's being replaced by a digital heritage screen. Some of those photos are originals, and some of those originals make the lobby look like a county archive." Vale signed the tablet with one finger. "Box them. Basement level. Anything damaged gets discarded." Samuel's hand tightened around the leather loop in his pocket. Inside that pocket, the key pressed into his palm. Not enough to prove anything, not yet. Maya glanced at Samuel's coat as if she had heard the faint shift of metal. Her eyes caught the edge of the bronze for 1 second before he closed his fingers over it. She did not gasp or ask. She simply slid his ID a little closer to herself and entered the number manually. Vale noticed. "Stop." Maya withdrew her hand. "Mr. Wells can try another property," Vale said, "and you can review our guest presentation standards before your shift tomorrow." "That's my shift for the dinner," Maya said. It was. The practical threat landed cleanly. 1 word and her hours were gone. Samuel understood then why Maya had written. She was not reckless. She was cornered. Tomorrow's dinner was not just a celebration. It was the moment Vale intended to make his version of the hotel official, with Harper watching, donors applauding, and the old protections hidden in boxes below ground. Samuel picked up his ID. "Thank you for your time," he said to Maya. Vale gave a satisfied nod. A wise decision. Samuel did not leave. He moved away from the desk and sat in a low chair near the lobby fireplace, where guests waited for cars and managers forgot workers could hear. He set his canvas bag by his feet and opened a worn paperback as if he had nowhere else to be. Within 10 minutes, he had learned more than the reports ever told him. 2 housekeepers whispered about reduced hours after the dinner. A banquet captain warned Jerome that Vale wanted older faces off the visible floor. Tessa told a florist the bronze plate on the private elevator would be covered for the presentation because it looked too antique for the new brand. Then Maya crossed the lobby with a glass of water. She placed it beside Samuel without making a scene. "You shouldn't stay here tonight," she murmured. "I know. Neither do I." Maya studied him then, really studied him, but whatever question formed stayed behind her teeth. Samuel lifted the glass. "Miss Alvarez," he said quietly, "if someone wanted to preserve an old employee photograph before it disappeared, where would it be?" Her breath caught. "The wall comes down at 11, she said. "Service corridor, north side." Vale's voice cut across the lobby before she could say more. "Maya." She returned to the desk. Samuel sat by the fire until the clock above reception reached 10:55. Then he picked up his bag and walked toward the corridor where the hotel hid the people who kept it alive. The service corridor ran behind the ballroom like a second hotel. Out front, the Whitmore Grand was velvet chairs and crystal bowls. Back here, it was gray paint, rubber mats, dented carts, and workers moving fast enough to be invisible. Samuel had walked corridors like this with his father when he was a boy, learning where the real pulse of a hotel lived. At 11, 2 men from the display company began removing framed photographs from the north wall. Jerome stood nearby with his hands clasped behind his back, saying nothing. His face was calm, but his eyes followed every frame like a family member leaving a room for the last time. Samuel stopped beside him. "You knew some of them?" he asked. Jerome did not answer immediately. "My mother is in the 3rd row," he said. "Laundry, 1974. She ironed tablecloths here until her hands curled." The display worker lifted the frame too quickly. The bottom corner scraped the wall. Jerome flinched. Samuel's voice stayed even. "Are they cataloging the originals?" The worker shrugged. We were told to clear the wall. By whom? Mr. Vale. Samuel saw one photograph set face down on a utility cart beneath a roll of tape and a box cutter. His father would have called that a confession without words. Maya appeared at the corridor entrance carrying a stack of menus she did not need. "You can't be back here," she whispered. "Then I should make it useful." He pointed to the frame with the laundry staff. "May I?" Maya hesitated, then removed her phone and photographed the back label before the worker could cover it. Jerome watched her do it, and gratitude moved across his face so quickly it nearly vanished. That was the first active choice Samuel made in that hotel. He was no longer only observing. "Get the labels," he told Maya softly. "Names, dates, locations. If the photographs disappear, the record should not." She nodded once. A voice cracked behind them. "What exactly is happening here?" Richard Vale stood at the corridor entrance with Tessa beside him, her tablet hugged to her chest. He took in Samuel, Maya, Jerome, the phone, the removed frames. His smile returned, worse than anger. "Maya, I asked you to review presentation standards. I did not ask you to conduct an unauthorized archive project with a loiterer." Samuel answered before she could. "I asked about the photographs. You have a habit of asking for things that aren't yours." Jerome's jaw tightened. Vale noticed. "And you, Jerome, should be supervising the luggage team unless nostalgia is now part of your job description." Jerome lowered his eyes. "Yes, sir." The words came out obedient, but Samuel heard what they cost. Vale moved closer to Samuel. "You were instructed to leave. I was advised to try another property. Then, let me be clearer. If you remain past midnight, I will have security escort you out." Samuel reached into his coat and took out his wallet again. "I can pay for a room. No available rooms. The sign outside says vacancies. The sign is decorative." Maya could not stop herself. "It isn't." Vale's head angled toward her. "That's two." The threat did not need explanation. Samuel felt the weight of the bronze key in his pocket. It would have been simple to pull it out, watch Vale's face change, force recognition. But a key alone could be dismissed as stolen, inherited, meaningless. The letters mattered. The old protections mattered. Harper needed to see the pattern in public, not a quarrel in a corridor. So Samuel put the wallet away. "Where will these photographs be stored?" he asked. Vale's patience cracked at the edge. "Basement. Temporarily. Discarded if damaged?" Tessa shifted her weight. Vale did not miss it. "Tessa, go finalize the ballroom seating." She left fast. Samuel had what he needed. A witness had heard the instruction. Maya had photographed labels. Jerome had seen the removal. And Vale had shown exactly how he treated anyone attached to the old promise. But escalation rarely arrives alone. At midnight, security found Samuel asleep in a chair near the coat room. He had not meant to sleep. His chest had tightened after the corridor, and the medicine made him heavy. The next thing he knew, a flashlight struck his face and a guard was saying, "Sir, wake up." Vale arrived with hotel security behind him. "This is now trespassing," he said. Samuel sat upright, one hand on his bag. "I'll leave the lobby. You'll leave the property." Rain still hammered the awning outside. The last trains were thinning. Samuel's car sat miles away in Joliet, and the anniversary dinner began the next evening. If he left completely, Vale would have the old wall stripped, the suite staged, and the evidence boxed before morning. "I'll wait outside," Samuel said. "You'll wait nowhere on Whitmore property." A guard reached for his bag. Samuel's hand clamped around the strap. "Careful," he said. Vale gave a soft laugh. "There it is, the dramatic secret in the bag." Samuel's face did not change. Inside were the letters tied with black ribbon, the cracked photograph, and the one item Vale could not explain away once the right people saw it. Not the key. The key would open a door. The letters would open the truth. Maya had come from the desk, pale and silent. Vale noticed her again. Go home. Don't come tomorrow. Her mouth parted, but the dinner shift removed. Samuel rose slowly. That decision is about me, he said. Leave her out of it. This decision is about standards. Vale's voice lifted for the guards and anyone listening. We are done letting sentimental employees confuse compassion with weakness. Maya's eyes shone, but she did not cry. Samuel made his second choice. He took the black-ribboned letters from his bag, slipped them inside his coat lining, and handed the canvas bag to the guard. Vale blinked. He had expected a struggle. "Search it," Samuel said. The guard opened the bag and found the shirt, shaving kit, medicine tin, and cracked frame. Samuel kept his hand flat against his coat, feeling the letters hidden near his ribs. Vale picked up the frame. For one dangerous second, Samuel thought he would turn it over. Instead, Vale smirked at the broken corner and dropped it back into the bag. "Get him outside." They walked Samuel through the side entrance into the rain. No marble, no chandelier, just an alley smelling of wet cardboard and kitchen steam. The door shut behind him with a heavy click. Samuel stood under a narrow overhang, breathing through the pressure in his chest. A minute later, the service door opened a few inches. Jerome slipped out, wearing his coat over his uniform. "You'll get fired," Samuel said. "Maybe," Jerome answered, "but my mother didn't iron tablecloths here 30 years so I could watch him throw her in a dumpster." He handed Samuel a folded sheet of paper. It was a photocopy from an old operations binder, the edges marked with age. At the top was the hotel's employee dignity clause, signed under Everett Whitmore's name. It was not the emotional proof. It was the supporting factual proof Samuel needed, the written policy Vale was preparing to erase. Samuel held the page under his coat to keep it dry. "Where did you get this?" "Archive room. Before they changed the lock." The service door opened wider. Maya appeared behind him, still in her uniform, holding Samuel's cracked picture frame. "He missed this," she said. Samuel took it carefully. "So am I," Samuel said. That seemed to steady her more than courage would have. From inside the building came the muffled sound of carts rolling, frames being stacked, a hotel pretending it could clean its conscience before breakfast. Samuel placed the folded dignity clause inside his coat with the letters. Then he removed the bronze key and held it out where Jerome and Maya could see the old stamped letters in the alley light. Jerome's breath caught. Maya whispered, "What is that?" Samuel closed his fingers around it. "Tomorrow night," he said, "Richard Vale is going to stand in front of everyone he was trying to impress." Rain ran down his sleeve. "And I'm going to ask him which door he thinks dignity still opens." By Friday evening, the Whitmore Grand was dressed for judgment and calling it celebration. A step-and-repeat banner stood near the ballroom entrance. The anniversary dinner guests arrived in dark suits, jewel-toned dresses, and winter coats handed off to workers who had been told to smile through exhaustion. At the center of the lobby, a temporary display showed a clean, edited history of the hotel. Celebrities, ribbon cuttings, travel awards, magazine covers. The employee wall was gone. In its place, a glowing screen looped the words "Heritage Renewed" over images of empty rooms. Maya saw it first and stopped so abruptly that a tray of glasses nearly struck her shoulder. Jerome passed behind her with luggage tags in his hand. Neither spoke. The absence was too complete, like a voice removed from a family recording. At 6:40, Denise Harper entered with 2 other trust board members and a city official. Richard Vale met them halfway across the lobby, all warmth and control. "Denise, I think you'll find tonight honors the past while preparing us for the future." Harper scanned the display. "Where are the staff photographs?" "Safely archived," Vale said. Maya, 10 feet away, heard the lie and lowered her eyes before it could show on her face. Samuel entered through the revolving doors at 6:52. He had cleaned himself as best he could in a train station restroom. His coat was still worn, his shoes still cracked, and the rain had returned just enough to darken his shoulders. The bronze key rested in his pocket. The letters and the dignity clause were flat against his chest under his shirt. He crossed to the front desk. Maya's face changed when she saw him. Fear came first, then relief, then the professional mask returned because Vale was already watching. "Good evening," Samuel said. "Mr. Wells?" she whispered. "I need to check in." The old line between kindness and danger tightened around her. Before she could answer, Vale arrived. The opening humiliation came fast, the warning, the public voice, the claim that Samuel did not belong. Guests began watching. Phones came up. Vale apologized to the room for a non-guest issue, and Maya tried once to check the archive before he threatened her job in front of everyone. But this time, there was no time for slow cruelty. Vale had a stage waiting. "Security," he said. Samuel stayed still. "I have a reservation. You have a fantasy. I have proof." That word irritated Vale more than anger would have. He lifted his hand and a guard closed the space between them. The lobby's attention sharpened. A councilwoman stopped near the champagne table. Denise Harper, hearing the disturbance, moved closer with a frown. Jerome stood beside the private elevator, one hand on the handle of a luggage cart, eyes fixed on Samuel's coat. Vale saw the gathering audience and made a choice. He would not merely remove Samuel. He would make him useful. "Ladies and gentlemen," Vale said, voice polished for the room, "this is exactly why our renewal plan matters. Great institutions cannot be held hostage by every stranger who wanders in claiming sentimental ownership of a building he does not understand." Samuel's lips pressed together. "Richard," Harper said, "is this necessary in the lobby?" "Unfortunately, yes." Vale faced her with practiced regret. "This gentleman has harassed our employees, entered service areas, and attempted to interfere with archival property." Maya's head snapped up. "That isn't true," she said. The sentence was small, but it traveled. Vale's eyes found her. "Maya, step away from the desk." She did not move. A few guests shifted. Public obedience was expected from workers, not resistance. Samuel spoke quietly. She did nothing wrong. Vale's patience broke in public. "You keep saying that as if your opinion has weight here." Then he seized the canvas bag from the security guard, unzipped it, and dumped Samuel's belongings onto the marble floor. The shirt, the shaving kit, the medicine tin, the cracked frame. The sound of the frame hitting stone made Maya flinch. A donor near the staircase muttered, "Come on, that's enough." Vale did not hear or did not care. He picked up the medicine tin between two fingers. "Is this what you came to sell? A story and a pill bottle?" Samuel bent toward the frame. The guard caught his arm. The pain that crossed his face was quick, but Jerome saw it and moved half a step before stopping himself. Vale nudged the scattered letters he had found in the bag, not knowing the real ones were hidden under Samuel's shirt. These were harmless envelopes Samuel had packed as decoys from the storage unit, old receipts and blank stationery tied with twine. "Look at this," Vale said. "Props." The word cut deeper than he knew. Samuel had spent 2 nights in rain and alleys to keep Everett's actual letters close to his heart. He had chosen patience when anger would have felt cleaner. He had given Vale chances to reveal himself and watched him take every one. But now Vale reached down and picked up the cracked picture frame. He turned it over. The photograph showed Everett Whitmore in the old lobby with the teenage bellhop. Vale barely glanced at it. "Wonderful," he said. "A thrift store photograph." Jerome's voice came from near the elevator. "That man in the photo was Mr. Everett." Vale froze just long enough for the room to notice. Harper moved closer. "Everett Whitmore?" Jerome swallowed. His voice steadied. "Yes, ma'am. Founder of the hotel. That picture used to hang in the back office before the remodel." Vale recovered. "Many photographs circulated over the years. It proves nothing." Samuel held out his free hand. "Give it back." Instead, Vale removed the photograph from the broken frame. Maya whispered, "Don't." He tore the corner. Not all the way through, just enough to split the old paper at Everett's shoulder. A sound moved through the lobby, not loud, but collective. the kind people make when cruelty finally becomes undeniable. Samuel's face emptied. For a moment, he seemed much older. The guard released his arm without being told. The torn photograph trembled once in Vale's hand. Harper's voice hardened. "Richard." Vale knew he had crossed a line, so he tried to outrun it. "This is manipulation," he said. "We are minutes from a major event, and this man is staging a scene to embarrass the hotel. I want him removed now, and I want Miss Alvarez suspended pending review." Maya went pale. "There will be no review," Vale added, "unless I request one." That was the threat beneath every polished rule. He controlled the door, the records, the schedule, the paycheck, and now the story. Samuel bent, picked up his medicine tin, and placed it in his coat pocket. Then he gathered the torn photograph with both hands. He did not snatch it. He received it from Vale's careless grip like something wounded. "You threatened her job," Samuel said. "You threw away your worker's history. You lied to your board. And now you tear a dead man's photograph because you think no one in this room has the authority to stop you." Vale leaned close. "No," he said. "I know no one does." That was the deepest wound. Not the insult, not the rain, not the bag on the floor. It was hearing his father's promise mocked in the hotel built to carry it. Samuel's shoulders lowered. His breathing slowed. The anger did not leave him. It found a shape. He reached inside his coat. Vale took a step back, suddenly alert. Security. Samuel brought out the bronze key. The lobby changed around it. Not everyone knew what it was. Most saw only an old piece of metal in a poor man's hand. But Jerome's face broke open with recognition. Maya covered her mouth. Harper's eyes narrowed, searching memory. Vale forced a laugh. "A stolen antique won't help you." Samuel walked toward the private elevator. No one blocked him. The private lift attendant, Mr. Calloway, arrived from the side hall pushing a silver service cart. He stopped at the sight of the key, his gloved hand tightening on the handle. "Where did you get that?" he whispered. Samuel did not answer him yet. He fitted the key into the lock. Vale's voice cracked through the lobby. "If you turn that, I will have you removed, charged, and buried in court before sunrise." Samuel's hand paused on the bow of the key. Then he faced the room, not Vale. "Then call your lawyers." The bronze key turned. Inside the private elevator, something old woke with a low, mechanical click. The private elevator doors opened. For a second, the lobby did not know what to do with the sound. It was too ordinary. Just metal sliding, old gears settling, a soft light coming on above a door Vale had treated like decoration. Samuel stepped inside. Vale rushed after him, but Mr. Calloway moved the service cart into the path without drama. "Only key access beyond this point," Calloway said. Vale stared at him. "Move." Calloway's voice stayed formal. "I serve that floor under Mr. Everett. I know the rule." That was the first confirmation. Not enough to explain Samuel, not enough to save Maya, but enough to make the people with phones stop whispering and start recording with purpose. Denise Harper came forward. "Richard, let him open it." "He has no authority." "Then the door will prove that." Vale had no answer that did not sound afraid. Samuel did not ride up alone. Harper joined him. So did Maya, after Harper pointed gently and said, "Miss Alvarez, you should be present." Jerome followed with the torn photograph in both hands. Vale entered last, stiff with fury, as if proximity could still give him control. The elevator rose without music. Samuel stood near the panel, one hand flat against the wall. For all the anger below, he felt only the strange pressure of returning to a room he had avoided for most of his life. His father's last argument with him had happened one floor below the suite. Samuel had wanted to sell. Everett had wanted to preserve. Both men had been too proud to say they were afraid. The doors opened to a narrow foyer. Dust sheets covered furniture. The air smelled of cedar, old paper, and time. Ahead, a pair of double doors waited beneath a small brass plaque. Presidential Suite. Vale exhaled through his nose. An old key opened an old elevator, he said. That does not make this man anyone. Samuel inserted the key into the suite lock. It turned. The doors opened inward. No one spoke. The room had not been renovated into Vale's heritage renewal concept. It was a preserved apartment from another era. Green leather chairs, dark bookcases, framed blueprints, a walnut desk facing the city lights. On the wall above the mantel was an empty rectangle where a photograph had once hung. Jerome raised the torn picture. "It fits," he said. Harper crossed to the mantel and measured the dust shadow with her eyes. The frame matched the pale outline exactly. Vale's voice sharpened. "Coincidence. Any old photograph could have hung there." Samuel removed the black ribboned letters from inside his coat. Vale's expression changed, not recognition of the letters, recognition that Samuel had kept something from him. Samuel placed the bundle on the walnut desk and untied the ribbon. His hands were steady now. The room itself seemed to have made a decision. "These were written by Everett Whitmore to his son," Samuel said. Harper's face tightened. "How did you get them?" Samuel slid the top letter toward her. The paper was cream-colored, softened at the folds, written in dark blue ink. "Because I am his son." Vale laughed once. It sounded wrong in that room. "No," he said. "Samuel Whitmore is a trust name on documents. He doesn't wander in from the rain with a bag of laundry." Samuel took his license from his wallet and set it beside the letter. He did not make a speech. He let Harper read the name. Samuel Everett Whitmore. The air changed before Vale understood why. Maya's hand went to the edge of the desk. Jerome closed his eyes briefly. Harper read the letter silently at first, then aloud enough for the small group and the phones at the doorway to catch the meaning without turning it into theater. In the letter, Everett wrote about the teenage bellhop in the photograph. He wrote that a guest had demanded the boy be fired because he arrived covered in snow and grease after helping his mother. Everett wrote that a hotel without mercy was only a building selling sleep. Then came the line that landed harder than any title or deed. "If the day ever comes when this house chooses image over human dignity, lock the best room until someone has the courage to remember why it was built." That was the central proof. Not money, not status. A father's instruction to his son, written before any of them in that room had earned the right to ignore it. Maya wiped her cheek quickly. Jerome held the torn photograph against his chest. Harper lowered the letter and stared at Vale as if seeing his polished suit for the first time. Vale tried to recover. A private family letter is emotional, but it is not operational authority. We have policies, board procedures, modernization schedules. Samuel reached into his coat again and removed the folded photocopy Jerome had given him in the alley. "One policy," Samuel said. He placed it beside the letter. Harper recognized the format immediately. Her voice dropped. "The Employee Dignity Clause." Vale snapped. "That copy is obsolete." "It is signed," Samuel said, "by Everett Whitmore and adopted into the trust operating rules." Harper read the page. Her mouth tightened further with each line. The clause did not promise luxury. It promised due process before termination, preservation of employee records, and protection from public humiliation by management. It required board review before removing historical employee materials from guest or staff areas. It carried Everett's signature and the original trust stamp. That was the supporting factual proof. Clean, specific, impossible to spin without lying directly to the board chair holding it. Harper faced Vale. "You told us the employee wall was temporarily archived under preservation protocol. It was being processed. You told me no staff had been removed from the dinner schedule for image reasons. Maya was insubordinate. You threatened her job for checking a guest record." Vale's voice rose. "He was not a guest." Samuel picked up the bronze key from the desk. "No," he said. "I was the test." The sentence ended the argument more completely than shouting could have. Downstairs, the anniversary dinner had stalled. Guests gathered near the private elevator, watching the live feed from phones held by people at the suite doorway. No one had planned a broadcast. Public cruelty had created its own audience, and now public truth was following the same path back down. Vale pointed toward the door. "This is a setup. He came here dressed like that to provoke me." Samuel faced him fully. "I came here dressed like a man you thought you could shame." Vale opened his mouth. Nothing useful came out. Samuel's voice remained low. "You were offered chances to check the record, protect your employee, preserve the photographs, and stop. You chose the lobby because you thought humiliation would make your version believable." Harper folded the dignity clause with care. "Mr. Vale, effective immediately, your authority over personnel and archival materials is suspended pending emergency board review." Vale's eyes flashed. "You can't suspend me in a hotel room." "I can begin it in one," Harper said. "Outside counsel will receive the letter in this clause tonight. Until the board convenes, you will not supervise staff, access archives, or represent the hotel at the dinner." The realism of it made it heavier. No instant handcuffs, no theatrical arrest, just power being removed one procedure at a time. Vale tried one last angle. "Denise, think about donors. Think about the press. If this becomes public, the hotel's reputation—" "Our reputation," Harper said, "is currently standing in the lobby with his belongings on the floor." Maya let out a breath she had been holding for too long. Samuel gathered the letters, but he did not hide them again. "Miss Alvarez," he said, "please ask the front desk to prepare an incident record for tonight. Include your attempted archive search, Mr. Vale's instruction, and the removal of the employee wall." Maya straightened. "Yes, Mr. Whitmore." Vale flinched at the name. Samuel then handed Jerome the torn photograph. "Mr. Price, would you take this downstairs?" Jerome's fingers tightened around the frame. "Where?" "To the lobby," Samuel said. "Where it belonged before someone decided workers made history look untidy." Harper nodded once. "I'll walk with you." The group descended in the private elevator, and this time Vale was not invited to stand at the center. He came out last, without the room's permission and without its protection. The lobby parted around Samuel. Not because everyone suddenly understood every document. They understood enough. They had seen the bag dumped, the woman threatened, the photograph torn, the door opened, and the board chair returned holding a letter like it weighed more than the chandelier. Jerome carried the picture to the temporary digital display. Maya unplugged the glowing screen. For once, no manager stopped her. Samuel placed the bronze key on the front desk where everyone could see it. Then he said the line that would be repeated in Chicago hospitality circles for years. Always quieter than people expected. A room is only presidential if dignity can enter first. Nobody applauded right away. That made it better. Harper addressed the lobby. "The anniversary dinner will continue, but Mr. Vale will not be speaking tonight. The Trust Board is opening an emergency review of personnel practices and archival removal. Any employee who experienced retaliation related to tonight may report directly to me or outside counsel beginning tomorrow morning." Phones captured every word. Vale stood near the marble column, smaller with each sentence. Samuel bent and picked up the last item from his scattered bag, the medicine tin. Maya moved to help, but he gave her a faint smile. "I've got it." That mattered, too. He had not come to be rescued. He had come to make the house remember. And in front of donors, workers, officials, and strangers who had raised phones for the wrong reason, Richard Vale watched the dusty traveler he tried to erase unlock the one room his power could not reach. The anniversary dinner did continue that night, but not the way Richard Vale had planned. There was no polished speech about renewal, no dramatic unveiling of a cleaner, emptier history. Denise Harper stood at the podium for less than 2 minutes and told the guests the hotel would be reviewing its leadership, its employee protections, and the removal of historical materials. She did not name every wound in public. She did not need to. By then, half the room had seen the video from the lobby. Vale left through a side hallway with Tessa beside him, his phone already pressed to his ear. He was not arrested. He was not ruined by magic before midnight. But by morning, his access card no longer opened the management office. Outside counsel had been retained. The trust board froze the heritage renewal plan pending investigation. By the end of the week, employees were interviewed off-site with legal protection. Maya's suspension was removed from the record before it could become official. Her lost shift pay was restored. Jerome gave a statement about the employee wall and the archive lock. The display company returned the boxed photographs, including the ones that had nearly been discarded. Some came back scratched, some frames were broken, but the names were still there. Samuel spent 2 days in the hospital after the dinner, though he told everyone it was a short rest with terrible coffee. His heart had objected to rain, stress, and 72 years of stubbornness. Maya visited once with a paper cup of soup from the diner across the street. Jerome came with the repaired photograph wrapped in brown paper. Everett's shoulder was still torn. Samuel touched the split corner gently. "Can it be restored?" Maya asked. "Some damage should show," he said. 3 weeks later, Richard Vale resigned before the emergency review concluded. The official statement mentioned leadership differences and failures of judgment. The unofficial truth traveled faster. He had built a reputation on dignity while humiliating the very people hired to preserve it. He did not go to prison. He did lose the thing he cared about most, access. His name came off the anniversary materials. His speaking invitations disappeared. 2 hotel groups paused interviews after reviewing the public footage and Harper's report. For a man who had measured worth by rooms he could enter, closed doors became consequence enough. The Whitmore Grand changed more slowly, which made the change feel real. The employee dignity clause was reissued to every worker in plain language. Any disciplinary action involving public conduct now required review outside the manager's chain of command. The employee wall returned to the lobby, not the corridor, with a small plaque explaining why Everett Whitmore had considered service history part of the hotel's foundation. Maya was promoted to archive and guest relations supervisor 6 months later. Not because Samuel handed her a prize, because she had done the work when it cost her something. Jerome helped rebuild the archive on Tuesdays and Thursdays after his regular shift. He found his mother's photograph, cleaned the glass himself, and stood before it for a long time without speaking. When Samuel joined him, Jerome did not thank him. He only said she would have liked seeing this out front. Samuel nodded. That was the idea. As for the presidential suite, Samuel refused to turn it into a luxury attraction. The board wanted to rent it for charity auctions. A magazine wanted an exclusive. A travel show asked to film inside. Samuel listened politely, then unlocked the room one morning and placed Everett's letters in a climate-controlled case near the walnut desk. The suite became a training room. Every new manager at the Whitmore Grand had to sit there for 1 hour before receiving keys to the property. They read the letter about the teenage bellhop. They read the dignity clause. Then they walked downstairs and met the people whose names were on the wall. The bronze key stayed with Samuel, but it no longer lived hidden in his coat. On quiet mornings, he sat in the lobby near the fireplace with coffee he was not supposed to drink. Guests passed without knowing who he was. Sometimes workers knew and pretended not to. He preferred that. It let the hotel breathe without performing. One rainy afternoon, Maya found him watching a young bellman help an elderly guest with a damaged suitcase. The bellman had mud on his sleeve from kneeling by the curb. A guest nearby frowned at the mess. Maya saw Samuel notice. The bellman apologized quickly, embarrassed. Before the guest could complain, Maya crossed the lobby and handed the young man a clean towel. "Take your time," she said. "People matter before luggage." Samuel smiled into his coffee. Later, he walked to the employee wall and hung the repaired photograph back in its original place. Everett Whitmore stood in the old lobby, one hand on the shoulder of a boy who had once been judged by dirt on his clothes. Below it, Maya had added a new line to the plaque. "A great house is not measured by who it impresses, but by who it refuses to shame." Samuel read it twice. Then he took the bronze key from his pocket and placed it in a small glass case beneath the photograph. not as a trophy, not as proof that he owned the hotel, as a reminder that the most powerful doors are useless when the wrong people control who gets to stand in front of them. That evening, as rain softened the lights along Michigan Avenue, Samuel left through the front entrance. No one escorted him out. No one asked whether he belonged. Maya held the door, Jerome nodded from the bell stand, and the lobby behind them carried the quiet sound of a house remembering its own name. If you were in that lobby, would you have spoken up before the key turned, or only after the truth was undeniable? Tell me in the comments. And if stories about dignity, justice, and quiet courage matter to you, subscribe for the next one.